Yeah.
Oh, I think I'm a member there too, but I don't get it. I think
Better late than never there, Shadow.
Howdy, folks. Welcome back to Shadow and Sun Show, and welcome to another episode of Gatekeepers. Tonight, we are apparently with a almost full boat. Off to my left or right, depending on how you see things, is the one and only Jade from Jade's Tabletop Tavern. How you doing tonight?
Doing well, sir. How about you?
I'm doing great. Down below, my adopted younger brother is Conall from the Cigar DM show. And off to his left or right, depending on your perspective, is Dr. Pressure, otherwise known as Bo from Bo Paints Minis. And later on, we're supposed to get a surprise visit. Oh, I blew it. From Mar Hawkman, who needs to hurry up and make a channel. I hope you're listening. Hope everybody out there is having a great evening. Hope you guys saw the show earlier. It's been a busy day for me today. I'm not going to go into it, but needless to say, the little guy is just knocking it out of the park left and right. Have you guys ever had to pay for a test in high school? Like cash money?
yeah, like for like ACT,
Really?
SAT.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. It's like I think it's a Spanish test or something like that.
Test?
But yeah, we had to, he had to wear his uniform and I had to get him an Uber ride. And I don't know how he made it because we were late getting him there by a couple of minutes. But, thankfully he got to do it. And I've been up since. And that was like an extra hour earlier for me, which I don't like doing. But I had to give him a healthy breakfast and get him off to school. And now I'm here with you fine folks. We've got the Crafting Gamer in the chat, who I will be doing a one-on-one with this Friday. So you guys all can get to know this guy and help his channel out and, encourage him to keep doing what he's been doing. Especially if you are, like me, a fan of old school Robotech and things like that. Okay, my Discord is not cooperating tonight.
If he had to pay to take a test and it was in Spanish, did he have to pay with pesos?
No. Although if you
pesos
saw,
aren't Spanish, dude.
If you guys saw last night's video, you'll notice that my treasure chest for the Tuesday treasure chest video is filled with pesos, Chuck E. Cheese tokens, fake plastic coins, and fake plastic gems because I'm not filling that with gold doubloons, not just yet.
Chuck E. Cheese. That's a place I haven't been in. We have one. We still have one in Peoria, but I
yes, we do.
I haven't been there since I was 17 and I worked there. They hired me to dress up as a big old rat. That was cool up until kids and their families. So, how's everybody doing tonight?
Pretty good, except for my Discord is not showing me any of the things it should, and that's where my questions are. So I'm going to go.
No worries. I got you covered. I'm
on
going
my
to put them in the
phone.
private chat for you.
He's so
Okay, I
useful.
appreciate that. I don't know why my device is acting like a snot tonight.
Why I'm tech support sometimes.
Yeah, I mean half the the head.
Oh,
Yeah, see, here it is, right here on my phone. Yeah, it's retarded. But anyways,
I'll show you retarded.
That's
apparently you missed DM James' show earlier. We had that discussion earlier with DM James, but that
must have been after I checked out.
Yeah, DM James is, like I was saying earlier, one of the absolute pillars of this community. Hey, Squirrel, what's happening, buddy?
I need to find a way to hang out with that man more. Unfortunately, his show on Monday is the same time I'm gaming, so it's kind counterintuitive to hang out with a person and talk about gaming when I could be actually.
Well, not only that, but
Gaming?
Bruce's show is on kind of overlapping time, so I got to go back and forth. Fortunately, I've got, as you guys just saw, I've got several devices, and sometimes I'll be on two streams at the same time. And my son is like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, I'm on Bruce's show, but I'm hanging out with James. And Jackie missed a slightly political conversation this afternoon. He's itching and raring to go for some of that action. Like, talk to him, man, not me. It's not my show. So Conall, how many kids like to play Hit the Rat in the Sack?
2 bloody mini. That's the reason why I no longer worked at Chuck E. Cheese, because the kid came up and nailed me square in the sack, as you put it. The dad was laughing, and I punched the dad, dressed up as the rat.
Wow. Okay, there he is, the man of the hour, Mr. Hawkman. Welcome to the show. I'm gawking you from your salary for being late, but better late than never, right?
Yeah. Somebody came up at the last second. It's just, well,
Hey, life,
That's life.
Yeah, it's got to come first, or we won't ever actually get to game from that point onward. Trust me, speaking from experience. So how you doing, Mar? Everything good?
Yeah, I'm good. It was actually like a dinner thing. It's like, oh, we got to take the pizza out of the oven. Oops.
Yeah, you don't want to eat charcoalized pizza.
So
everybody ready to jump into these questions? Hope you guys all got a chance to read them. Conall, you wanted to add something?
Really quick, Hawkman, I will tell you, like I tell everybody else that cooks, the smoke alarm is not the alarm to tell you that your food is done.
Trust me, my nephew's done that and regretted his life choices.
Not even going to touch that one. But I've got a mother-in-law who does actually use the smoke alarm as the cooking timer.
I use a normal alarm,
So tonight we're discussing character backgrounds, family history, and why I personally think it's a great idea to at least encourage your players to create some sort of background, family history, the tired trope of I'm an orphan and blah blah blah, the edgelordism that was so common in all of our upbringings. I've done it. I think I did it recently. I think I did it not in Connell's game, but I think it was Connell's game.
No,
I had a sister.
Connell's game, you had a sister. Mike had a little brother, and that was the only siblings that was you have in the game.
Right.
I pay attention.
And I while I was writing up these questions after I'd posted them, I had thought of some things that I'll try to remember going into as we go through the questions. But don't get me wrong, I do understand that if you're playing a game, especially like a funnel game or an AD&D game or a game where there is a high casualty rate, spending this extra time on a character could be completely pointless. However, the other tired trope that we all are probably familiar with, the brother or sister coming to avenge your death, comes in handy for just this situation and entitles your new character to all the possessions of the old character. Am I right?
Nope. That shit is sold on the market. You bring in what you get.
Not if there's an actual will. Will in Last Testament. If you play that by those rules, you've got to honor them, because you're going to lose players if their stuff goes to somebody else and they've done all the work and they're going to bring in a new character that's the brother, sister, or what have you, and you say, "Oh no, the players took all your stuff." That's not cool.
There's also the idea that it's special loot. You're not going to just dispose of the good stuff like that.
Right.
If if the player comes up and says, "Hey, like you did with Bruce's campaign, I have a will that if my character dies, X goes to the church and charities and so forth and so on." That's fine. But if the player who's making the character makes no mention of belongings going to the Saint of GoFundMe, then the loot normally gets split up through the party, if not sold.
Believe it or not, in the old days, many a good character sheet would actually have a space for your will and testament. That if you were, a good player, you would fill that out. I mean, it wasn't much. It was, a couple of square inches of lines to write it in, and that was, pretty much, law for as far as I'm concerned. So with that out of the way, let's get to the first question, which ties into everything we were just kind of talking about. Why do so many players try to opt out of creating their families and family background? I'm going to start with you, Jade, and go clockwise.
So I can speak from experience on this one. As a much younger player, when I was newer to the hobby, I would create characters that didn't have families because a multitude of reasons. I was there to kick down doors and slay monsters, not talk about, like my character's past. Like my character didn't have a past. So I was basically looking for a dungeon crawler, not a role-playing game in my younger years. So to me, I think that's probably one of the bigger reasons why players don't have character or families for their characters. So I mean, I don't know. It's just one of those things that I didn't give a thought about when I was first starting out. Anymore, I think they're very important. I try to make sure that my characters, anytime I create a character, they have some kind of past or history, and I always try to include some blurb about the family, whether still in connection to or estranged from, whatever the case might be.
Good for you. That's just it's just, as Bo's going to, I'm sure, expound upon. It makes it easier for the GM to get the story rolling and to just, like I said earlier in the description of the video, to help flesh out the overall story. And Bo, what would you say to this one?
I think that the reason that a lot of players don't create backstories, significant backstories for their characters, is because it's not, for most role-playing games, it's not an integral element. It's not baked into most role-playing games. Most role-playing games have their roots in tabletop war games. And so most people play role-playing games like a tabletop war game. Jade even said it. I kick down the door, I slay the monster. It's a trope, right? It's they want to play Munchkin. They want to play Munchkin with a D20. And that's fun.
Hero Quest or board game.
They want to play, and so I think that there's a cultural phenomenon there, and I mean the culture of role playing games is that it doesn't really encourage people to play a role playing game like a radio drama. It doesn't encourage people to play a role playing game like an event, like improv acting. If they're there, if you're there to roll dice and consult tables and kill imaginary monsters, that's fine. But if you're there for something else, then it behooves you to communicate that and to work it out with the DM, GM, referee, keeper, whatever system you're playing. And I just think that some games are more conducive to that, reward that kind of play, and some don't. So why don't players do it? I think players do it because they don't know that they can, or that they should, or they even have to. Unless they've been playing role-playing games for a long time, then they might not even know about it. So we have to encourage them as the DM, GM, keeper, more experienced player, big brother type, encourage them to participate more than participate beyond kicking down the door, slaying the dragon, taking the loot, using that +1 sword to kill the next monster to get a +2 sword. It's part of the game, right?
It can be. I like to think that I run a little bit, tighter shift and get more out of it. I like I said at the beginning, I think there's ample justification to not do it if you're under the impression that you probably won't even survive, the first adventure. But if you do, I think it's a little gamey to try to write that after the fact, because then you can throw in things that are incredibly beneficial to your character after they've been born, so to speak.
Sure.
How about you, Conall?
There's always a catch. I'm writing, okay, I'm going to spend an extra 20 minutes to say I have a mom, a dad, 2 brothers, and a little sister, pet dog, a shock lizard as my outdoor pet, whatever. All right, so I spend extra 20 minutes doing it. Game gets started, and it's heavy combat type game, like a system like Pathfinder, for example. Okay, so you're in one encounter, second encounter, third encounter, lower levels. It's kind of deadly, and you're dead. So I spent anywhere from 40 minutes to making my first level character, because I'm new to the game. I spent another 20 minutes, so I spent an hour on this, only to have this character for 3 sessions. Why the hell do I want to bother? Why do I just want to? Do you have family? Sure. Tell me about them. They live out west. They live out east. No more detail other than they live in some random direction, that you're out trying to make money for the family name, and that's as far as you go. That is why, in my opinion, a lot of people, including me, kind of opt out to spending extra time to try to draw out a family, unless there's a reason behind it. Draw out a family that I am never going to RP interact with, because God only knows most adventure parties are homeless, wandering murder machines, and going home longer than just to dump the gold off, sleeping with the local prostitute, drink a few beers, and leave, is what most players are aiming to do, and that's the end of it.
Well, I noticed that you, not just when you said, way out west or way out east, you within one sentence summed up quite a bit, the family, the siblings, the pets. That can tell a DM quite a bit, and you did that in 30 seconds. Had you written it out, it might have taken you, 8 minutes, but just messing with you. It can be that simple. It can be more, but once you've done that, you can add a little bit to it later, so to speak, if it's okay with the GM. I mean, ages and things like that. As we go later on, I'm going to show some things that with a couple of die rolls can do most of the work for you in the presence of the DM, so to speak. You can give the GM so much to work with if he or she ever actually needs it. How about you, Mar?
Well, I kind of personally take a less is more approach with designing characters like this. It's like you want a rough idea as to who your character is. Otherwise, it's not a character. It's just a set of stats. But beyond that, you need to ensure that your character that you're creating fits into the world that you're going to play the character in. So you can't make a, say, 3-page backstory when you don't even know what the world you're going to play in actually is. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, maybe you'll accidentally write a backstory that just completely doesn't make any sense whatsoever in the context of this world. But this also gives you the option of just like filling in the blanks later when you mm-hmm. have a reason to care about certain parts of the backstory.
Absolutely.
It's one of those things that it takes a lot of time and practice to guess ahead of time which things are going to be needed, and of course ask the DM, because quite frankly asking the DM will give you more information on this than I can, because when you ask the DM will give you information specific to the world that you're playing in and not generic advice. I mean, because like in the Hyperborea game I made, it's like I kind of sort of like wrote in the backstory of my first character that she came from this village for some reason or other, and ended up making 4 more characters from the same village because I kept having characters get killed off. I mean, they're not, like siblings or like close cousins, or well, actually, I just never bothered figuring out how closely related they are to each other. But
But don't you find that that's actually helpful, like with what I said earlier with a will, or as opposed to just having, you meet a ranger by the side of the road and now he's your best friend and joins the party. You can have that ranger was your older brother or a cousin who's been sent by the family to find out what happened to your first character.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, because the idea I was going with is that the various characters I had been playing had been sending messages back to town because, the first one was doing something for a very specific reason. So she had reason to send status reports back home. And the idea being that the other characters showed up because of this series of status reports being received.
Awesome. Real quick, I'm going to say hi to a few people who just joined us in the chat. A friend to many of us here, Scott Clark, welcome to the show. Obviously, Squirrel Hermit, Six Nations, Flady is joining us, Crafting Gamer, RPG Grandma just popped in. Thank all of you guys for being here tonight. And, you guys are right. It was a very busy day. DM James, the Old Geek had a show, and those of you who made it here, we really appreciate it. Having you guys in the chat really helps keep these conversations going, and sometimes you guys think of things we didn't think of, like right here, perfect example. A game called The Quiet Year can be a great tool for character backgrounds for the whole table if all are willing to be from the same town or region, which depending on the beginning of the game, unless it's you all meet in a tavern, that's probably how it really would be. I was reading from my friend Grimm's novel, Arn of Clayhaven. There are only a few characters in the party. There's a boy, 2 boys and a girl, and they're all from more or less the immediate area. And it makes more sense that they are in fact from the immediate area than and I've done this before where the players, because one's an elf and one's a dwarf, and the game is centered in this sort of neutral area. They've traveled 100 to 500, 1,000 miles to get here. And to be honest, a journey like that could give your character quite a bit of XP, even if it's only residual here and there. Getting to that point, traveling 500 miles in a, let's call it a D&D fantasy type setting, you could kind of earn 2nd, 3rd level by the time you actually met the other 1st level characters, if that's how it's going. And I've actually done that, but
Can I comment?
that's not for everybody.
There was a comment that was made for me in chat about Scott said, "Why bother?" ...
Right. I saw that.
Yeah, he says, if you're not interested in fleshing out your character, then why bother?
I agree that a person should flesh out the characters. I have no problem with fleshing out the characters. But it's the character that's going out on the adventure, not mom, not dad to hold his hand, not brother or sister, unless they decide to somebody at the table decide to RP the brother or sister or a cousin, whatever. But the adventure is about that character, not mom and dad.
Real quick here. Sorry, Brian. You know what? We will all go over and watch your weird show after this weird show. This is a regular Wednesday thing. Sorry to step on your toes, and folks, if you get bored with this this nonsense, feel free to go check out Weird World War II. Is one of my favorite new channels, especially since we have so much in common, and we kind of look alike. I noticed the other day. I'm like, oh, that's what they were talking about. It's like crap. One of us is gonna have to trim our beards, Brian. I think it's gonna have to be me, huh? Because yours is longer. Crap.
All right.
So,
Well, I have a question then, and I forgot promptly what it was. We were
I
talking
hope it's
about
not your question.
brain fart. Must not have been important. I thought it was important, but
Well,
it wasn't.
feel free to bring it up as soon as you remember. I know what it's like as we get older. You know, that's why I interrupt people so often. If I don't, I'm going to forget whatever genius just came to mind.
Oh yeah, sometimes I personally just like actually write them down so that I won't forget later.
That would be great if I could read my own handwriting. And RPG Grandma says each player having a background secret they don't want others to know. You know, that's actually kind of a fun way to get people to actually, you know, go into writing some backstory stuff to explain said secret. So let's move on to question number 2, even though we've kind of beat this actual question to death, which is, what are the benefits of neglecting this process? I'm going to start with you, Mar, and then go in reverse clockwise order.
Well, I mean, obviously there's the whole thing of leaving blank so you can fill it in later. But another one is that if you go to the time and effort of writing out a 3-page backstory that literally never comes up, it never gets used, you're probably going to feel like it was a waste of time to write the backstory.
I can see that.
I mean, because like the aspects of backstory that you wrote might be things that just aren't relevant to the adventure you end up playing out. And even if you do actually look into your character's backstory, you might look into a different aspect of their backstory than the one you actually wrote.
Thanks, Scott. And Chimerian just joined us.
I can read my own handwriting. The problem is no one else can.
It's in code.
No, I have ADD, so spelling is. I don't think there's an I in it. Shut up.
Spill it how it sounds.
Exactly. F-O. I think there's a C in there. There could be a U somewhere in there, but I'm not 100% sure.
So do you need a refresher on the question there, Conall?
Oh. Benefits of not having family. Well,
not writing anything down. Not just neglecting the whole process.
It makes the game move faster sometime. I mean, I've been in campaigns where we just happen to be in Jim Bob's, village, and he wants to spend the next 3 days having tea with his mom. What? Where, all right, we're there for a reason. We could drop off, pick up, whatever, and move on. Keep the wheels moving. Instead of, okay, you get to have a 2-hour conversation with the DM and the rest of us are just sitting around with our thumbs up our ass. I mean, that doesn't do anybody.
Seriously, if your hand goes down your pants for more than like a minute, you're out of the table, out of the game, and probably out of my phone book. You know what I'm saying?
But you know what I mean, though.
I know. Just such a
most of us all of us at this panel right now are adults. We all have lives. Some of us have children. We all have jobs of one way or the other. We don't. If we have, or well, you're retired, but you have a kid. That is a job to its own degree. We get to set. Some of us only get a set amount of time each week, or maybe every other week, to sit around a table and hang out with our friends and game. I don't want to spend an hour talking, listening to somebody talk about how wonderful his mom's garden came out this year. I want to continue the story at hand, and having a campaign where you're all orphans or some degree of that makes the game normally go smoother. I'm not saying the person doesn't fall in love with a NPC character, because that stuff happens. I've played that character a couple different times. But the idea is you're not the only person at the table. Other people want to be able to play their characters. So if you're obnoxious about how you want to spend time with your family at the table, you're taking away time from other players, and that's just not cool.
Good point. Bo?
Okay, I don't think that how you play backstory or fail to play backstory is a fault of the backstory itself. I think that's a fault of the other players, and I think that's a fault of the game master. Now that said, it depends on the type of game that you want to play. And I think that's a communication issue. I think that the players and the game master need to hash out either via in person on a session 0, or via email or text message, or private message via Discord server, and work out their expectations of the game. You're a player. What are your expectations? Do you want to role play? Do you want to just roll dice? Do you want to talk about your grandmother's garden this year? And then after that, it becomes the responsibility of all the players at the table to follow that, right? To meet the expectations of the party. Why not have a backstory? The only reason I could think of not having a backstory is if all the players are genetically engineered, they came out of a test tube, they don't have a past, or if playing some kind of campaign like Reservoir Dogs, where they all meet and they're just going to knock over this jewelry store, and that's going to be the end of the game. Okay, if you're not playing a campaign, you don't need a backstory. If you're going to play 3 sessions in an arc, you're going to play these 3 modules from the B1, B2, B3, then you don't need a backstory. But if you're playing a campaign where you expect your character to develop and change over time, and party dynamics to change over time, then you kind of need a backstory, because it's a rudder that you use to guide your character, right? To guide your.
I like the way you put that.
Yeah, you need to flesh out. I mean, even if you're taking an improv class, and the teacher at the improv class says, okay, you're standing in line at the ATM, you've only got one leg, go. Well, you're right, you've got something to go on. But if I say we're going to play a campaign in which you're all the sheriff's guards and you're guarding this caravan as it crosses the Shire, and you don't have any backstory, what's going to happen on the 5th session? I don't know. So please have a backstory. Unless you're playing a one shot, and then I don't care.
So, benefits for neglecting the process of making a character backstory that includes family may be that the game gets started sooner. You don't have to worry about the fill in the blanks until after the first session. Not that, I'm saying you shouldn't fill in those blanks ever, but, if everyone is meeting at the table for their session 0 or session 1 or whatever, and some players don't have a clear view of their character yet, they're like, well, I'm feeling like this is the class and this is the direction I want to take the character. I just don't know this character all that well yet. I haven't put any time into the development of their background or where they come from. You can fill in those blanks of family later, or you can do white room with it. And what I mean by white room is your character is, especially for players who love playing the amnesiac player or characters, they can have the white room experience where they have a background, but they discover it along the path of the adventure. Like they start remembering things because certain memories are triggered because an event happens. They're like, oh yeah, by the way, the game master will go, oh, yeah, you recall this from your childhood. The picture of who you were starts to become a little more clear. So you can have that experience as well, where the game master's like, you know what, if you don't want to put in the effort, fine, I will put up something, or I will roll a random family for you, and this is how I'm going to tie you to the world. That can happen as well. But after you've started playing, you might discover, oh yeah, I spent let's take it out of D&D, for instance, and go to something like White Wolf. You have the potential to get contacts with your background points or your beginning points, or not necessarily just contacts, but also different dots of resources and whatnot can lead into background information of your character's family. And you may not know who that contact is at character creation, but through explorative gameplay, you might go, oh yeah, by the way, I know a guy, or I know a person who does XYZ. They happen to be my dad's uncle's brother's roommate from college. Well, what does that make you to them? Well, who knows? Absolutely nothing. But so the point there is you don't have to have your character's background set into stone at the beginning of the game, especially if you're running a DCC funnel. Those characters are meant to be thrown away into the meat grinder, and whoever comes out the other side, that's who you write your background for. So there are benefits to skipping that process at the very beginning, and that is for immediate role play and not necessarily role play, but immediate gameplay, and getting butts in the seats and getting dice rolling for the adventure. To me, that's the primary benefit of skipping that.
Can I make a quick comment to Scott again? I'm sorry.
Which comment?
No, if I want to say, well, now Scott made a comment. It's like, well, I require people to make a background, at least a page of background for the character. If I'm at somebody's table, Scott, hypothetically, let's say I'm at your table. I say, Conall, if you want to play my campaign, would you please write a background? I would say yes, because that is your request as a DM. If I'm at somebody's table and the DM makes that request, I want to play, I'll do it. It's no skin off my nose. I'll figure something out. But as a whole, if the DM doesn't ask for it, I'm not going to offer it.
I think Shadow's still making his way through the comments.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. You guys are really active tonight. I really appreciate it. Squirrel, I've got some things to help you if you like those charts and what have you. You probably have the same books as I do, but just in case. Scott, only 3 pages. I like to write 5 when asked for one. Kai said before, I think he jumped out of the chat. I think he got a little irritated. Now, it isn't a waste of time to write the stuff, and they are just there for you, the player, to draw upon and motivate you, not just tools for the GM to ignore. If your GM is ignoring them when they can obviously put them in, that's a problem. But if you've put in things that, the GM says, hey, I can't do that, or that's not going to be relevant for, reasons, which, they don't have to give you the reasons immediately because that's stuff you wouldn't know yet. Squirrel, I'm more of a 3-sentence background than a long involved one. Kai, again, I write a mountain.
You say every time you say orphanage, I keep thinking of the Val Kilmer movie, The Saint, as a rogue character. I mean, I could make that work. I can try to make anything work, to be completely honest.
Right. And Grandma says sometimes the background, if too huge, overshadows the adventure story. So letting the character unfold and play can be effective. Everything's got to be kind of okayed by the GM. Bo? Oh, Bo had to leave. Oh, that sucks.
Oh,
I wanted to hear his opinion on at least the next couple of questions, but he can. He's got the questions in Discord. He can maybe hand
teaches
them back
classes
to me later.
on Wednesdays.
Give me some extra credit work. I have
Oh,
one
as a teacher.
player. I have one player who gives me backgrounds in picture form, comic book style. That's a player I would not let go of. When he's
Yeah.
not busy, can you send him my way? You know her.
The player's actually a she. I
Okay.
know the player, so she's actually pretty awesome.
And Grandma says, if a game can be a meat grinder, why do much until you are sure the PC will live a bit? Yeah, that's something I mentioned earlier. I'm not going to read Kai's comment out loud. You guys can check it out. He got a little upset, but he does that from time to time.
I think that was over on my channel. So when you go back to watch this, if you don't see Kai's comment, you can go check it out on my channel. We're dual streaming tonight.
Well,
Oh, cool.
yeah, I saw his comment, and it's one of those things where it's like maybe, possibly, some of the time, but not all of the time. Definitely not all of the time.
Right. And now the next question is, basically the opposite of the last question. Hold on just a second. What are some of the what are the benefits of creating a thorough family background? I'm going to start with you, Dave, because it's easy.
Okay. So, the benefits to creating a thorough family background actually are plenty. So I kind of said this in the Discord as well. Like, if you're playing a halfling character, like, they have huge families. They're connected all across the realm. A party should not want for shelter at all if they're traveling with a halfling, especially through halfling lands. Because they can call upon their cousins to help, or distant family members. Elven characters benefit from years of experience that they can draw upon from their fathers, their grandfathers, whoever might still be alive, as well as any like resources or knowledge. They can just say, hey, you were alive during this period when this thing happened. Can you tell me more about it? And it's a great role play device, especially for the game master. So really, it's not just for the players to use; it's also for the game master to use to give clues as to what's going to happen next, or to provide information, or even threads or hooks, story hooks, to get players moving in a direction. It doesn't always have to be used as a crutch by the GM to have someone go missing. Like, that's I know it's a trope, and I know D&D is a lot of D&D stories are built on tropes, but you don't always have to use it that way. So to me, having family, a character's family in a background is exceptionally useful to both the player and the game master, because it is a resource for both of you to use.
I like it. I like it a lot. You actually spurred something in this old thinking meat of mine that I'll pop up at the end. I'm going to have Conall go next.
How's that worded? The question. Sorry, Bruce sent me something, so I had to jump pages.
The question for you, sir, is what are the benefits of creating a thorough family and background?
I'm going to have to take a page from Jade. There are multiple races out there: gnomes, halflings, dwarfs, and a few other that. But I'm going to stick with the basic three that are family oriented. They, a family of dwarfs don't have one kid; they have 15. Gnomes and halflings are the same way. If anything's closer to a human in most RPG games, is the halfling. Halflings and humans, society are fairly, almost in my opinion, the same to a certain degree. I think halflings are just happier people, but that might be just me watching Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit one too many times. I don't know. But with that being said, if the player is like, hey, I want to flesh out my family, yes, it is a great thing, because if their family is well spread, like what Jade said, they don't need shelter. They could be getting rations. One of the family members could be named Max, who runs a magic shop, or Clifford, who is the head priest in Temple of Go St. Fund Me. so there are a lot of benefits to characters making a family background. I personally, like I said, if I have a player who wants to do it, I love it. I really do love it. But I don't know if the questions lean this way, but there's also a downside to a person who wants to make a family. And if any of the questions lead that way, I have a great answer for it. But that's my answer. It's resources, or that a party could use from using a family background that is really useful, and it takes some of the pressure off the DM. Okay, they're in town, humpleweeds. Does anybody Okay, well, they can, instead of trying to figure out a tavern encounter, if you want to do a random tavern encounter, they're just crashing in a stable of this guy's family. It's just it smooths certain things out.
Gotcha. Mar, what you got for us?
Well, I mean, the plot hook angle is a really, really easy one, because of the fact that having like an NPC who hasn't necessarily been, explicitly detailed, but conceptually exists at the very least, so that you can, be like, oh, hey, it's this guy that you have definitely heard of before. Like, well, for one example, from a Hyperborea game, it's like the same characters I was talking about earlier. Is one of them, gets a letter from her cousin, who isn't someone she talked to on a regular basis, but like part of the thing in here though is that she and the party read the letter and then start asking questions related to her backstory to try and figure out what's going on, because the fact that there's certain things in the letter that don't make sense when taken into the context of her backstory. Mm-hmm. And again, though, that's one of those things where if you didn't have all those plot hooks in place already, you can't have the players be like, wait a second, who is this guy and why is he lying to us? When all they've done is read a piece of paper that they got in the mail. It's like just something you wouldn't be able to do if you hadn't, at least created a rough outline of the stuff previously.
I started this comment from Grandma here. Some cultures, no family background can make you an outcast or worse. Watch kung fu films and how orphans are treated. Wow, no family, a huge issue culturally. You know what? Not only that, but you're denying yourself so many things, like you guys have already discussed, so many freebies along the way, so many things that you can take advantage of, which sort of ties into one of the reasons I like it, is because making that backstory is just about the last chance you are going to get to, let's call it, pad the adventure safely for yourself. It allows you to throw some things in there, a support system, if you will, friends and allies and things, it puts you a little bit in the driver's seat, and it's the last chance you're going to get, because right after that, you're putting your character sheet down on the table and getting ready to roll dice, and you are now in the domain of the GM at the table. If he okays your backstory, without any vetoes or too much careful consideration, he says, okay, that's fine, we can go with that. Well, that you've got some things that you can count on, if you're ever, running from the law, or you need help, or you need a place to stay, like has been touched on before, or any number of things. If you say, somebody in your family is a priest or a magic user, how handy would that be later on down the road? Maybe if you're running a thief, maybe your family's been, rogues and rapscallions for generations, which probably actually in that profession, just by what you just wrote, your old man was a thief, your mom was a fence, and now when you come back from the adventure, you can get rid of some of those items easier, maybe get a better price, things like that. It's literally the last chance you get to be in charge of your character, I'm going to say almost 100%. Obviously the GM can veto and say, no, you're not getting that one. Sorry, nice try. And Jade said here, tools are meant to be used, which segues right into question number 4, which are, what are some of the tools you used for creating family background? Squirrel, I hope you're going to take note of this. I've got a couple of examples that I will share with you guys after we go around the circle. I'm going to start with you, Conall, because I don't think we've started with you yet. What are some of the tools you use?
I don't particularly use. I know there's charts out there that you can roll. 5th edition has like a table that will let you
No
know
worries, lady.
what your family could look like, and I think that's cool. But I basically just let the players figure out what they want to do. I don't like it when a DM tries to build my character for me. So with that being said, I just kind of let the players do what they want to. If like I said, 5th edition has a chart. I'm sure Pathfinder does somewhere. I've never used it, but I just leave it up to said players and let them run with it. I mean, granted, it's my game, but they're the ones who are in it. They're the ones who are not controlling it, but the ones who are fleshing it out to a certain degree. So if I get a bunch of people saying I don't want to do the background, then there's no reason to use any tools. But if I got somebody who says, hey, I think I want to flesh out my character a little bit more. Okay, what race are you? Well, I'm a dwarf. Well, there's clans. There are clans of dwarves in this sort. Just break it down that way. I'll experience more than, let's say, tables and charts. I'm sure that's not exactly the answer you're looking for, but that's what I got.
No, it's okay. We're gonna keep going counterclockwise, so you'll be last. Well, actually, I'll be last, but Jade, then I'll bounce back with my answer. What do you got for us, Mar?
Well, wait, what was the question again?
What are some of the tools you use to help players generate their backstory?
Well, honestly, I found that the Waves of the Boreas thing that someone made for Hyperborea is actually a really, really quick and easy tool. It's one of those things where even if you're not actually rolling on the random number chart, reading the list of options that someone wrote out for the random number chart will give you ideas as to what you want to consider putting in, even if you're not actually going to randomize it. And you don't even have to actually use one of the things on the chart. It's just one of those things that's like thinking about the things on the chart will, give you ideas as to how you want the character to be related to the world. Like, does it actually make sense for a Eskimo magician to have a day job of taking care of horses that are used for traveling caravans? Well, I mean, that actually ended up being related to her story of how she ended up in the party. Is that she was part of a traveling caravan that had gotten ambushed and attacked. And she ended up being, more or less the only survivor of the attack because everyone else ended up dead. And then gets rescued by the rest of the adventuring party.
Gotcha.
But that's actually one of those things where I hadn't actually thought of how the party was going to meet the character before I decided that she would be someone who does stuff with horses. That ended up being, it's like, oh, well, we'll just use this as part of that. And it's just one of those things. It's like having the charts gives you things to think about when you're doing it. That there are lists of things that people do in that fictional setting of Hyperborea. So, yeah. Well, as for family, though, it doesn't really go into much detail there. No, but yeah, well, yeah, I didn't really have a good idea there. Well.
I have an uncle
Okay.
that speaks with your Mark. I have an uncle that speaks with your speech pattern. It's kind of funny. I mean, no disrespect, it's just the way you were talking, like Uncle Rod.
I think Jade wants me to share the screen.
Yeah, I'm just making info images for everyone so they can see the question.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Oh, never mind. I'm not going to do that then.
So damn clever he is.
Okay.
I thought it was something, one of your resources. And before I
No.
get to you, Jade, Bruce put up Rollmaster 2nd Edition or Hackmaster 4th Edition does wonderfully on creating before you had your first chest hair
Before
period
you had your first
information. Thanks for sharing that, Bruce. So what do you got for us, Jade?
So as far as like what are some of the tools I use for creating family backgrounds, real life. Like I can draw from my own life experience with my own family. I don't need a special tool or anything to do this. I've got a mother, a father, a brother. I've got cousins and aunts and uncles. So I mean, I don't really need any specific charts or anything to roll up a family. I know what family is. And for some people, who don't necessarily have all of those things, they can still relate and draw upon their own experience with their family. Whatever their family might look like. So I mean, and yeah, sure, I know, Conall, you and your family don't exactly get along, but you still have one.
Right.
And you can still draw upon those experiences.
I just can't imagine an RP session. Hey, Mom, can I get a hug? Where's my rent money? I just can't picture that being used successfully in a campaign.
But my point here is you can draw upon your own experience as an individual when you're creating your own character families. Like, even if you don't have the perfect family, you can design the perfect family for your character just based on your own life experience. I've got brothers, I've got sisters. I have the ability to go, oh, hey, what is a relationship with them like, in real life? And how can I translate that to my tabletop character? Is it a good relationship? Is it a bad relationship? Is it an estranged relationship? So, I mean, having that experience is, it helps, but I could go to a random generator and have it randomly draw me up a family. I could do that. Just about anybody could. Hackmaster has it. I do believe Palladium has something like that. I think Traveler has a family background generator. So I mean, there are game systems that have it built into them. I just find it unnecessary because my mind is creative enough that I don't need the extra tools. Now, granted, there are some things I may not think of. Like, oh yeah, what is your sister's profession? I'll fill that in later. Or the game master can fill that in later. That's fine. I don't necessarily need, who are they? What do they do? What is their, what is their annual salary? Like, I don't need that information. I just need the basics and who are they to my character. And that's all you really need is who are they to your character? Are they on good terms with you? Are they on bad terms with you? Would they like to see you at the bottom of a lake? Like, those are the things that give your character story and that things you can use to role play with. So if you do meet the one sibling who would rather see you at the bottom of a lake, you can have that interaction with that in your mind and the game master's mind. Because, like I said before, the background is for you and the game master. If you want an adversarial family member, go for it. If you want family members that have, good relations with you and will, put you in up for a night and give you food because you've traveled a long way to get there, awesome. Use that information and draw up that information for you and the game master.
Okay, that's for me. Most of my family passed away at a very, very early age, but I can do most of that stuff. But when it comes to other people, I'm not gonna, dig too deep with their, their own, personal family relationships. I use a couple of tools, but before I get there, Flady, who are you and how do you know these things? Because literally, I carry my 40 in this pocket and my blade in this pocket. That's pretty good, man. I'm gonna be keeping my eye on you, man. But yeah, the vest actually has 2 shoulder holsters built into it. But I don't carry around the house because, I'm home. And I've, got stuff in just about every room of the freaking house. Bruce said, you said you'd worry about it later because you didn't intervene on your sister's behalf. She's now an OnlyFans girl, and we need to roll what she's buying on the narcotic. Oh my God, Bruce. Okay, right off the bat, the tools I use. The first was the old Unearthed Arcana. It had 2 charts, and that's, back in the day, that's all I kind of needed. It would tell, one was your birth order, and would let you know how many brothers and sisters you had on a percentile die roll. Okay, cool. The other one, though, this one really was a game changer for us back in the day, because it was your social table or your social class, running from lower class all the way to upper class. Mind you, you had to roll double odd for the upper class, but in it, it not only described what your parents' profession or land holdings might be because of that. That made a huge difference. If you rolled, lower class and you're freed slaves, peasants, tinkers, vagabonds, beggars, criminals, blah, 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 all the way up to double odd, great nobles, sovereign nobility, and royalty. If I saw you roll that, literally roll the double odd in front of the whole table, you were getting some stuff, okay? That would make a huge, massive difference no matter what profession you picked. Say it was a thief. Let's go with the lowest, but you still rolled double odd on your family's, place in society, and you still chose to be a thief. That kind of says a lot about the character, don't you think? Yes, you're royalty, but you're a thief. Okay, so what does that mean? That means you're probably sneaking out of the castle every night, doing stuff, getting in trouble. That could lead to all kinds of great, character building sort of information. Now, the other one I like using was the family clans and caste charts from the Oriental Adventures, because it gave you kind of like in Traveler, a bunch of events and things that have happened to you in your past that, the tables are so many and varied that, it's not likely that you're going to roll the same as another player. But if you do, then that gives you a binding connection with that player for one reason or another, depending on what it is. And I really like that. Traveler does some things like that as well, that, when you roll up your life path, you find out things about your character, or at least what your character's been doing, recently, so to speak. And those things also will help, not so much with the family, but with the background and building your character, what they've done can, as we all know, what we've done in the past colors our present situation. We draw on those experiences. And even if you're in a game with experience and you got 0 on your character sheet, that doesn't mean you haven't had experiences to get you there, and those can help. And with knowing who's in your family, because what if you wanted to be, the only child to make it easy on yourself, but you roll up, say 6 or 7 brothers and sisters. Well, then that could give you, what was the girl's name from the Brady Bunch, the middle daughter?
Marsha?
No,
No,
Marsha was the
older.
Janet.
Cindy was the youngest. Janet. Well, she was always, let's just assume it's Janet. I could be wrong.
I think it's
someone
Janet
out there. Okay. Well, she was always jealous of her older sister, Marsha, that whole line. Well, if you're like that, somewhere in the middle, you could very well, have an older sibling or 2 or 3 that,
Jan. Okay.
that influenced your growing up. Thank you, Raven. Welcome to the show. Long time no see. We missed you Saturday. I'm sure you've got a crazy story for us coming up real soon. Why don't you plug your channel in the chat for us, the radio show, in case we have any of the Quantum fans here watching right now. She's got her own radio show that she talks about all kinds of paranormal things that's actually quite interesting, at least to me and some of the folks here. But yeah, drop us a line there. And hey, Sean, welcome to the show. I almost missed you there. But all those things can add. And then another book I use is the Arduin Grimoire, volume 1 through 3, the hardback, or you can find it in the original first grimoire, I believe. But it's got a lot of little things that you can add to your characters, sometimes even cosmetic sort of features to your character, like having weird birthmarks or strange eye color, hair color, things like that would, fit in really nice with today's gamer crowd, even though it was written 40 plus years ago. Kool-Aid hair before that was a thing. But I like to use those resources to help flesh out the characters. If they don't already have something and they're stuck, I can pull these books out real quick and go, okay, well let's roll some dice and give you a little assistance for the players who don't already have something in mind. And by the end of that player rolling those things up, then everybody else is looking at me like, I want to roll on those tables. Yeah, I want to know what my social status is and things like that, because unless you roll really bad, you might get a little bit more out of it than you would normally. In a lot of the games, it's like roll 3d6 times 10. That's how much gold you have. To me, I always found that kind of, I don't mind giving my players, a couple of pack mules full of equipment to go out on an adventure with. If it was me and I was going camping, there'd barely be room for people in the car with all the stuff I'm bringing. And, if you're going on a real adventure, unless it's like one of those in and out black bag jobs where, less is more, you can't be carrying around a lot of stuff because you need to get in and out quick. And, you can't be dropping hammers and chisels along the way with your fingerprints all over them, if you know what I mean. So those are the tools I use.
Well, as I'm thinking about it, 5th edition has a lot of players will have backgrounds. It's one of a lot of DMs will push backgrounds, and there's a way to roll them out. One of them is you're a Water Davian noble, which you have money, and that can have its own background for stories.
Yeah. Some background music there.
Oh, Jake,
that's the boy. That is the boy. He is in the shower. Make sure you give him a compliment on his wonderful singing voice. Real quick, totally not related. DM James, I'd love to hear about that if it's not too personal. If you want to jump on our show Saturday night at 6 p.m. California time, maybe some of the guests in the show or the regulars, Raven included, could maybe help you out with what might be going on. You're always welcome to hang out with us, or maybe catch Raven's show and give her a jingle and see if she might be able to help you guys, or at least DM James, who's been having actual paranormal events for the last month. That could be a good thing. That could be a scary thing. But you don't have to, go through it alone. As it were, obviously we're all, hundreds of miles away, but. And real quick, Six Nations, I got an uncle like that, old-timey upbringing, family honor sort of thing. Was years before my mom and the rest found out they had an older brother. Right. See, sometimes that stuff, can be played with as the DM and the player. We were talking about secrets earlier. Maybe, there are some secrets that you could, come up with. I know the Oriental Adventures book had one that you were like a member of a secret society or something like that. It doesn't have to be anything sinister, but maybe, for whatever reasons, like the Shriners, or something like that, that you don't want getting out, or maybe, your mom's a member of the Assassin's Guild. You definitely don't want that getting out, but it's a secret you still have to, keep with you. And Charlotte, welcome to the show. I'm still waiting for those photos, Charlotte. Maybe he goes camping a lot, and that's why the blade. Right. Okay. I have no idea what that was about.
So Charlotte had asked, or they got to talking about your vest. Two shoulder holsters built into one vest. Please tell me you put a Colt 45 ACP in them. And then the discussion continued, and then Charlotte had asked why the blade, and result.
No. I carry a blade because I believe that nobody should leave their home without a knife, and not necessarily for like combat, but just because you never know when you could actually use one. And I'm a knife guy. My old man had a gun shop, but before I could own a gun, my old man had hundreds and hundreds of guns. And, it was a big deal when I was able to actually get my first knife. And ever since then, there's hardly been a day that went by that I didn't have one, on my belt, in my pocket, or, something like that, just cause. And, I'd rather have one and not need it than need it, not have it. Although my Swiss Army knife is it looks like crap. It's missing parts and pieces to it, but I use this thing every freaking day.
The condom rule.
I prefer the fire extinguisher, but yeah, I
just. Sorry.
I'm not touching that one. Sorry, I'm just not. No.
No. It's just how I've always described that as I'd rather have one and not need it than need it and not have it, and I am.
See, like our RPG grandma, she's got a brother she's never met. That they're, and who knows? You could be walking, through a strange new town or something, and you get, you go down the wrong alley, and some ruffians come up behind you, and then lo and behold, your long lost brother comes up behind them, and saves your bacon. What a great way to meet your long lost, estranged or what have you, brother or sister or something like that. There's so many things that family can bring into a story that, if we would just open ourselves to allow them in, both as players and DMs. Hey. I hear that grumpy noise. Gerber blades are amazing, low cost, low maintenance. Hell yes. Yes, I've had quite a few.
I gotta say, family is my least favorite F word.
I get it. The more weight I lose, the bigger my. Jesus, God, I gotta read these before I read these, if you know what I mean.
Yep.
Thanks for sharing, James.
Pre-read.
Thanks for sharing. That's the sense of humor that I've come to love and respect over the year. Oh my Lord.
That's a horrible lie. Should not lie to like that.
You know what? I was just talking about you earlier, James. All good. You've been a stand-up guy from the moment I met you. And Sean says, Grandma, I had a long lost half brother I only met a few years back myself. See, you never know when these things can come in and you know and help out your life. Charlotte, the 357 girl herself. Nice, nice. But we're getting way off track. And he carries a sod buster. I'm not. I'm not touching that one either. Let's move on to question number 5 now before we get too far off track. Not like that's never happened before, right, Jade?
Yeah. Tangent?
Thank you, Grandma. As long as Grandma forgives me, all is good. That and her throwing
And
on
DM
with the
James
frying
has
pan.
our buddy DM James has a half sister in Vietnam. Is she cute?
Hey, that's
Just
my
saying.
line. That's my line.
Clearly, you have not heard me use that line like always. So, as a DM, what are some of the things you do not allow a player to add to their family and background? I'm going to start with you, Mark, because you've been strangely quiet for the last, I'm going to say like 20 minutes.
Oh, sorry. I had the mic muted because someone called me during the middle of the. Yeah.
I see how you are.
Anyways, one of the most amusing Twitter threads I saw a while back is just some guy posting a screenshot of the backstories of his players with this thing highlighted in yellow on one of them, and him talking about, it's like, hey, guess who's going to be the first one to get killed off in the campaign? The thing is, no one could actually read what he posted because Twitter's image compression algorithm made everything too blurry to read anything, and he never elaborated on why. But anyway, it's one of those things. It's like making your character someone who is, shall we say, extra important in the world. That's one that comes to my mind. Is that like, I say, like you're setting this in Camelot, and one person decides he wants to be the son of King Arthur or something like that. It's like, maybe not, because
Be prepared to be overshadowed constantly.
Right. Well, going
Anyway.
with literature, that didn't exactly work out well for Arthur to be, being the son of him.
Well, but for TTRPG though, it's like you have this one person who's basically a celebrity, and the other guys who are just kind of sort of, regular dudes. That's just a quick example that I threw together in this second. And it's like, I guess another one would be like, it's like writing your character to be, fantastically wealthy like Bruce Wayne in DC Comics.
Damn it, you stole mine.
Oh, well, sorry.
Sorry, I'll think of something else.
It's one he always uses anyway.
Hey, rich parents was there for a reason.
Hey, there's a game I'm really fond of called Top Secret. And in it, you get X number of, let's just call them perks when you're making up your character. And one of them is called wealth. And you can take it in various ranks. And if I have the option, I'm boosting that up at first level all the way to the max. I'm a material guy. And, I've never really had to worry about money too much. But there are a whole lot of times where I wish I had more, and more would have always solved almost all of my problems. There's literally there's no such thing as too much money being thrown at one of my personal problems that's going to end up, and bite me in the rear end. So that's I totally get that one, but in the wrong place, in the wrong time, yeah, I would veto that as well. Okay, Conall, since you can't choose money, what else would you veto?
Your parents can't be a god. I came across that once. I wanted to be a bastard child of said god, And I'm like, no, that goes with the self-importance of the campaign. Players do not get to put on plot armor because of who their family is. But there's really, except for wealth and giving yourself like obscene plot armor, there's not too many things I really say no to. Because just because you're parent or something doesn't mean you are going to get the benefits for it. There's like throughout history, not throughout history, but throughout the eras, there's always been that one person who had an extremely rich dad or mom, and the mom or dad looked at said child and said, okay, you're 18, go make your own money, or you can't have access to my money until you prove your worth. So there's always some kind of workaround, but obscene wealth, some kind of plot armor as saying my dad's Zeus or some nonsense like that, unless the game is going that way already, that's really my two big no-nos.
For me, I would say orphan. Like I despise the orphan card being played at my table constantly. You have no idea how many characters I've had who were orphans. Like that's just laziness. You're a murder hobo and just admit to it, damn it. Because like that's what murder hobos do. They're like, oh yeah, I'm an orphan. So I don't have to have a backstory. I don't have to fit into any mold or anything. I can do whatever I want and then kill whoever I want and just get away with it. The answer is no. I'm tired of the orphans. And if I'm running my game world, and you are within the national borders of the country I like to run the most, okay, you're an orphan. Congratulations, you're conscripted at age 5 because nobody adopted you. And that's how the rules of that country work. Is if you're not adopted by age 5, you are conscripted to the military and you're forced to become a monk. You must be lawful. Congratulations. At which point they're like, well,
professional soldier.
Right. Well, that's the thing, though, is in the game that I run, the country that I most commonly start my game in, orphans in that country specifically are inducted into military service as cadets at age 5, and they don't get a chance to get out until age 15, where they get to choose, do they want to live a regular life or do they want to continue military service? They all start off as level 1 monk, period. That's where they start, is level 1 monk. They don't get a choice because they're trained discipline, they're trained respect and following orders given to them. That's just how that country works, and that's the country I typically start my games in is the Terran Commonwealth. So if you want to play an orphan, okay, but here's my stipulations. So that's the one I absolutely despise the most, and that's why I put that restriction on there that if you're going to play this is where you start. You don't get a choice in the matter anymore. No, well, I'm an orphan, I'm going to be a thief. No, you're not. You start at my table. You start as an orphan. You're starting as a monk because you just got out of the military as a cadet, who are mostly messengers and runners. If you don't like it, build a family.
Right. And our RPG grandma pulled that one out, I think, earlier, about how horrible it would be. If you're not conscripted like that, then you'd be a street urchin and relegated to being a thief or a beggar. And if you're playing Arduin, you really don't want that. Trust me. Anything's better. Just come up with something, for Christ's sake. Right. I have to agree, Orphan is one of my least favorites for all of the reasons. But believe it or not, if like I was saying, if someone rolled a double odd, making them filthy rich, I may let them switch characters with somebody else who wanted to be rich. It's like, okay, you just play that character, and I have no problem with that, because being rich brings with it a lot of its own issues that other players would not want. Oh no, you're not adventuring. You have things to do. So now you got to like run away from home, kind of thing. And now the whole freaking countryside is looking for you. You got to come up with a disguise and an eye pack and all kinds of crazy stuff to keep doing the adventurous lifestyle.
I don't see the point of playing somebody who is, as I said, Bruce Wayne, rich, because they don't get, most DMs, Jade, for example, is one of them. I'm one of them. After years of realizing, that just doesn't work, you don't get access to your family funds. So what's the point of being rich? What is the absolute point other than nobility? I can understand nobility because nobility can get you into places you normally can't get into. I get that. I'm not arguing that one. But the character's like, well, I want to come from a rich family. Noble? No, just rich. Well, that doesn't do a damn thing for you because they kicked you out telling you to go make your own fortune. But I want to be rich. Too damn bad.
You know what? I wouldn't even pull that. I would find other things because I know as a parent, if my kid needs anything, he's getting it. That's it. That's my job for now until I die. And even then, I'll come back and haunt his ass. I'm going to watch out and care about my kid. I'm not going to kick him out. This isn't, the roaring 20s kind of thing. Go out and, prove yourself kind of mentality. Nobody really does that.
Now, but we're not talking about today. We're talking about.
Well, it depends on the campaign.
Depends on the game.
Yeah.
Right. I play a lot of things besides just D&D. And by the way, Six Nations, thanks. I was actually sitting out here earlier with Jade. And I looked at the camera and I'm like, gosh, that's kind of nice looking. That does make for a nice backdrop, doesn't it?
It does.
Just need to get a pop filter mic.
Right. And the little guy just drove by and gave us a howdy do. He's not singing anymore. He's out of the shower, all scrubbed up and ready for tomorrow.
Howdy do must be something different at your house.
Yeah, it does. We're a loving family. What can I say?
You don't give the California hello, the California wave?
No, but I will. Never mind. I'm not doing that. Believe it or not, almost everything everybody has said that they wouldn't do except the orphan, which is one I just despise because it really just stems from laziness. And, if you think about it, if you're a good player, you can come up with something that's going to wow me. And if you literally came to my table and said, okay, well, my secret is my dad was Zeus, I'm like, I can work with that.
Well, one thing I just thought of about the orphan one is if someone just says, oh, he's an orphan, it's like, okay, so please explain how that happened and why he's an orphan and what happened to his parents.
That I get. I can work around. That is a great workaround. I don't have a problem so much with the orphan as long as it makes sense for the character.
So I played an orphan character, and my character started in the country that I was explaining. This was 25-ish years ago, and the game master at the time said, "Okay, you're starting off as a monk." He's the one who set that into motion, and I'm like, "Why am I starting off as a monk?" It's like, because of this reason. And I carried it forward. Like I think had them getting out at like age 10 and doing whatever. But I'm like, you know what? No, I'm going to carry that forward. I'm going to, keep with that. So he wrote up what my background was and who my parents were. It turned into this huge, long lineage of previous emperors and kings of this country that my character was born into. He had no idea until he was much, much older. He also didn't realize the family curse of lycanthropy would hit him at a certain age as well. That was quite the surprise.
Or the Innsmouth look, that would be fun.
Say again?
The Innsmouth look, where you start, getting the boot lip and you need to stay wet and you got an urge to go swimming, because you're about to turn into an old one.
Actually, the character ended up being a lycanthrope, natural-born were-tiger. Again, this was not planned by me, the player. This was planned by the game master because I was the lazy sod who decided I'm not going to write a character's backstory because I'm just here to kick in I'm here to kick in doors and kill things. Like that was how I played 20 years ago. And
Sure.
that game master's like, no, I'm going to teach you better. And thank God he did. Because that character, like my absolute favorite character of all time. In fact, I use his name today, but the way I had originally designed him was just to kick in doors and kill everything that moves. That's all I want. That's all I cared about at that time, because I was a dungeon crawler. I was not a role player. I was a min-maxing murder hobo. But I learned better. I make characters that have story to them, that have meat to them for both me and the game master.
I kind of, and I know tonight's really not
You guys are killing me.
Hey, now I live in Illinois, and Chicago's not part of Illinois. I don't care what anybody says.
Sorry about the noise. I'm gonna.
I kind of want to argue the orphan, though. I mean, yeah, I get your point, Jade, and I don't disagree with it. It depends on the DM and their role that they run. If I find myself at your table again and I pull the orphan card, you're more than welcome to say you are of this. You have to take levels in monk. It won't be for very long because I don't play monk well, but I get it. But an orphan rogue, I know it has been overplayed, but sometimes an old what do you guys call it? An old you guys said it multiple times already. Not taboo, an old I can't think of the word. What?
Trope.
Oh, an old trope still works. If you want to play a rogue or something, as I said, the Saint. If anybody here remembers the movie or TV show, The Saint, he was a master disguises and he was a rogue. I think that'd be fun as hell to play a type of rogue like that, and he was an orphan. There's got to be a reason for everything we do as players for our characters, and there's got to be a reason for everything we do as DMs. If you can make sense of it,
and no.
If you can make if you can make a character make sense to the DM and yourself that happens to be a orphan, he or she should not be penalized because we're asking said person to use their imagination, and they did. We might not like it, but just because we don't like it doesn't mean they have to suffer for it.
Well, okay, to go back to the Batman analogy, Batman being an orphan doesn't mean he lacks a backstory with the family in it. Well, I mean, like Alfred as like surrogate father figure, of course, but the fact that his parents were killed is one of the most important things about Batman's history, and something that he's kind of obsessed about.
Yeah, and all of this ties in to not this question, but the next question, which is hopefully we'll get to real quick. Mages, I would totally allow that, and I'll go into why in just a moment. So. It's doable. I can do it.
It's not. I'm not just somebody.
It would, trust me, it would have just as many adverse effects as it would positive. But let's move on to number 5. As a DM, what are some of the things you do not allow a player to add to their family and background? No, actually, we just did that one, didn't we?
Yeah, we just did that one.
Okay, gosh, sorry.
We're moving it's actually fast. I mean, we are, even with the rambling, we still are moving fairly quick.
Yeah, we've only got 2 more and about 30 minutes to go. So number 6 is actually, how much is too much when it comes to creating a family background? I'm going to start with you, Jade.
How much is too much? Man, too much would be probably beyond 5 pages of information. And I say that not necessarily jokingly. Like, I have players who give me 5 pages, and that's awesome. Like, I will dig through that and pull from that into the game itself to not only tie the character into the world, but also tie them to the main plot line of where I want to take the campaign. Like, I have certain things I want to do and directions I want to move the game in. So I will tie their background to that campaign design or that campaign goal. But too much, if you, the player, cannot remember the details of your own character's backstory, it's probably too much. Because you're going to have to, as a player, remember the details that you have put into your character. Yes, writing them down, taking notes is part of the game. It's part of what you do. But if you can't recall like the simple information, why have it? Why'd you write it in? So too much is probably beyond 5 pages. I like to give between 1 to 3 pages, and typically in the form of a vignette, a story, like a little side story to the character.
Okay, how about you, Conall? I'm sure we're going to get a pretty quick answer.
Wow, you know me so well. What much is too much? If it slows down the campaign, I mean, I don't care if you wrote a notebook for your background, and it can continue growing as you play your campaign. If you're like wanting to turn into a weird little novel for yourself, as Joe is over here doing this, mom and dad are opening up a new business, and you can feed that into the DM. As long as the DM and the player have a way to do it and it doesn't take away gameplay. There was a gentleman I used to play with, James, who I believe would send Jade here emails of discussions that he was wanting to have with certain people in game for information. That didn't take away from my team at the table. That was something him and James did via the internet or whatever. I think that's great. I think a continuous background that's growing, or not so much a background, but a side world that's growing that you can use, the DM could use in this campaign, is a wonderful idea. Or, as much as I joke around it, my character dies, all of a sudden you run into the same character, but now he's in a red cloak. Mm-hmm. Adding family members means you could play the brother, the cousin, hell, the dad, if you really wanted to. It doesn't mean that it's not an option. So I don't think there is too much. It's just how much is it going to take away from the other players' time at the table is what I always question. Once again, don't know if that's the answer you're looking for, but that's what I got.
No, it's perfectly fair and brings up some, good points. One of which you brought up earlier was, wasting other people's time. How about you, Mar? What do you got for us?
Well, I mean, that thing you said about time is that, it's like, if it takes you like 5 minutes to give the other players a brief summary of your character's backstory when introducing your character to the group in the first session you actually play, feels a little excessive, mm-hmm. when that's supposed to be the, summarized version. But
that's such a great movie, DM James, Next to Kin, Patrick Swayze, Liam Neeson, and a few other people. Great movie.
I mean, also, like, if you like write out multiple pages and then have to try to look up stuff later, and because you don't actually remember all of it, it's like, that's kind of too much too.
I disagree with that, but that's okay.
Well, another one though is that there's that thing I mentioned earlier about your character's backstory conflicting with the setting.
Yeah.
As a GM, you probably are going to go with the idea that the setting takes precedence over the character's backstory. And the more pages of backstory you write, the greater the likelihood is that something you wrote in there is going to be not as the GM envisioned the story being.
Mm-hmm. For me, it's been
that,
so long.
Isn't that why? I mean, isn't that why the game master and the player are supposed to kind of collaborate on character backgrounds?
Oh, absolutely. It's just that, so. if it's like in 5 pages of stuff, is the GM necessarily going to be able to fact check everything ahead of time and actually, get it right. Because,
Incorporated.
yeah, it's just incredibly complicated. It makes things a lot more difficult on the GM than it needs to be.
And as far as what RPG Grandma says here, like, I don't mind if it messes with a little bit of the setting. I can write that into my setting. Like, that's not a problem. Especially for my own homebrew setting. Like, if someone goes, yeah, I'm going to be the heir to the first gun manufacturer of the world, I'm like, okay, I can write that in. Sure. That was over 100 years ago. So if you're the direct heir, that means you're probably cursed with some form of bastardized immortality. But sure, let's roll with that.
I wouldn't know anything about that. Not a
yeah. You wouldn't know anything about that, huh?
thing.
Wow,
So,
you are laughing
of,
extra
like,
loud for someone who's never heard of that before.
So that was actually Connell's character in one of my games. Is he wanted to be the heir to the person who made the first gun. Well, I'd already set that the first gun was a hand cannon. It was like a 80 caliber hand cannon, literal cannon, and the elves hated that person so much that not only did they kill the person who made the first gun because of the massacres that occurred on their lands, they cursed his only child, his character, to live a life that basically would be without love. That he would everything he loved would wither and die and turn to dust before him. And his only, the only way he thought about getting out of it was, well, suicide. So what did he do? He suicided and found out the hard way that taxed 50 more years onto his miserable life. And that's the character he decided to play.
Yeah, I would become a saint and love my enemies and watch you pull
Ironically, I did become a saint.
He did. So I already had the world kind of built, and I had some of these things built in there, and he was like, oh, okay, so I want to be related to this guy. I'm like, cool, because I said you have to have something in your background. Like, I don't care what it is, give me something. And that's what he gave me. I'm like, sure, let's roll with it. So I am more than okay with my players having something in their background that might tweak or change or add to my setting. I have no problem with that whatsoever. In fact, I invite that. If you want to make a major change to my setting, okay, you and I are going to have a conversation. We're going to sit down and hammer this out, and I will write that change in, but I will have a little bit of control over how that change is made to the setting as a whole.
So for me,
go for it.
It's been so long since I've rolled up started a first level campaign. I did one shot with my son and his friends, and it was just to get them to play, and it really didn't even come into play. These days, I'd be pretty accepting with a lot of things, just because it's a new group. And back in the old days, the last time I had my players roll up brand new characters was like 25 years ago. So I've learned so much just in this last year alone that, having them write, backstories, they'd be like, huh, what's that? Playing with guys like, everybody in the chat and in the panel, it would be, a whole new bar and a whole new level of what to expect and what to, bring to the table as a GM. But I'd be pretty open to just about everything, these days. So I don't really have any hard, fast rules on this. But it would, it kind of segues into the next question, which is how would you reward your players for their creativity when creating their family background? I would probably want to use as much of that as possible. And I would probably also recommend, the players giving the GM some time to work with their backgrounds before actually, setting off with session 1. Session 0, it would be like, well, come to me with your backstory if you can, as much of it as possible. Then leave that with me, and then when we play the next time we play, I can go over everybody's backstory and work it in and make notes and make deletions. Go that's just not happening. Sorry, that Dragon Slayer sword. Sorry, no, you're not getting that. Or whatever. But Mar, how would you reward or encourage your players with their backstories and their family background in a brand new campaign?
Well, I mentioned that I did the whole Eskimo village thing in that one Hyperborea campaign.
You said village, not brothers, right?
Yeah, village. I mean, it's like I have like 5 different characters from the village, but one of the things with the village that I established about it is that it's a village where the dominant religion is people who worship the Wendigo, Ithaka, which is a bit atypical for Eskimos because the majority of them worship Cthulhu.
That's my
I
choices.
was not aware of that.
That's my choices.
I mean, this is Hyperborea though, so that's...
Right. I get you, but here's my choices. I get to eat a worship of Wendigo that is a cannibal, scary ass monster, or one of the elders. Yeah, I'm an atheist.
Yeah, but what would you be playing?
Dead. That's what I'd be playing. I'd be playing dead. Because Wendigo or the Elder. Either way, I'm going to be somebody's prom. I'm going to be being worn as somebody's prom dress. No, hell no. I'm an atheist. I die at birth.
Okay.
Sorry. I mean no disrespect to you, Hawk. I mean, it's just those are my options.
Well, I mean, the Hyperborea setting has something like 2 or 3 dozen gods that various groups worship.
Yeah.
It's just that the background lore for Hyperborea has it that the majority of Eskimos worship Cthulhu, because apparently the first group of Eskimos that got brought to Hyperborea from Earth were a cult of Cthulhu worshippers.
That's right out of H.P. Lovecraft, big time.
Well, him and the guy who created Conan had a romance like no other. So
Robert E. Howard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not, making fun of you or anything. It's just that's some really shitty options.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
one could eat me, and the other one wants to use my brain as jello.
Well, see, the thing with worshiping the Wendigo though is that having the power of the Wendigo at your disposal is kind of useful.
Yeah. Does it come with its own madness?
No, not really.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay. Anyways, sorry.
So, Conall, how would you reward your players for their creativity?
By using their family as story plots.
That's basically like almost the perfect answer.
For example, Timmy is at the local church. He happens to find a silver coin.
Uh-oh.
Now, there's the antagonist. Or a local barbarian tribe decided that they wanted to raid the village that you're from, and a head chieftain finds your sister fairly attractive and wants her as his
leave my sister out of this.
As your as a new bride. There's multiple ways to do this without really. I'm not saying to dick the players for like. By the way, thank you for extra plots I have now in the campaign. But there's ways to use them, their family members, in the campaign in helpful ways to keep the story going. In the Wrath of the Righteous, there was a temple that my side guy, what was his name? Higgins. Higgins was related to, and he was the answer to get into this tomb. No reason. There's no reason why Mom Paul shouldn't be brought into the campaign, brother or sister. Like I said, little Jimmy finds a golden.
Von Parr, brother and sister. Did I hear that right?
Mom Paul.
Okay, I'm gonna revise my what do I not allow my characters' family backgrounds to be? Family trees that don't fork.
Oh boy, yeah, that's a fun one.
See, now you're just
no. The answer to that's no.
South. That's racist.
That's not racist.
It's not so much of a tree as it is a great big wreath. But
that's just wrong.
There's multiple different ways to use family members.
Genius. I'm stealing that, Conall. You're on fire tonight.
There's multiple different ways to bring families into the campaign where it's like, say you had a long week at work and you just haven't had the time to write down what you want the players to be doing or direction. So you throw something in, like I said, having little Timmy fighting a nickel that has a curse attached to it. And now he plays with a band called Nick and the Nickelheads. So
you'd mind the backstory for Gold.
Yeah, especially if I'm having a long week at doing whatever and I'm just not ready for that game. If I could think of something off the hitch and it involves their family, all right, well, your little sister and Jade's little brother both get kidnapped. Guess who's now more interested in the campaign than they were 5 seconds ago on their phone?
That's what I was waiting to hear.
So that's my answer for whatever it's worth. And yes, I am a dick.
So I kind of already answered this to a certain extent. I do reward my players with, the game mostly. The reward for creating a really interesting background and tying family members to it is it helps me tie you, the player, to the game and into the game world. It gives you something to care about, something to fight for. If you have something that you're willing to fight for, there is nothing that will stop your character from fulfilling their goal. If I was to use the tired old trope of the family member in peril, like, yeah, you would go through the motions, and again, it's a tired trope for a reason. People just expect it to happen. But if I was to put your family members into a position of power or knowledge, you could go to them to ask for help. If you're stuck in the middle of a quest because you guys, the players are just having an off week, or they just can't think of what to do and where to go next, they might go to a family member, especially an elven family member who happens to have knowledge that they need because their family member might be a librarian somewhere or a mage. And family is there to help you out. Like that's their purpose. Like that's part of what being a family is helping out those in your family. So my reward for my players having, big, really well-connected and family members who like one another is you will sometimes get the help you need if you simply ask your character's family. If you're too far away, you might have a cousin nearby that is available to assist in some capacity. Now, I'm not going to have them overstep the characters because the characters are the star of the game, not the NPCs. But there's nothing saying I can't have an NPC that just happens to have what you need to complete your mission if you can't think of it on your own. I am more than okay with giving the resources to you, the player, that you need to be able to solve the issue. Now, I'm not going to give it to you all the time freely. Like, you're going to have to work for it. But having, bigger families, having connected families, or even rich families, it can help you. I will very rarely hurt you with it, because that just makes me an adversarial game master, and that's not what I am. The game master is your friend, not your adversary.
Right. That is absolutely 100% correct. You really should. I can't think of a better way to get the players more involved in role playing than to what is that, Mar? That static.
I don't know.
You hear? Okay, it's gone now. Yeah, but I can't think of a better way to get the players more involved and more attached to their characters than by using their backstory as much as possible. Within reason, obviously. We've touched on some of the really crazy situations, but if a player comes up with something good, they've written themselves into the story in a way that you may never have thought of, and can really endear them to the game. And that's what we all want. We want those exceptional players that that think of these things that are more than just, like Jade said, kicking down the doors, killing whatever's there, taking the treasure, rinse and repeat. We've all been there, we've all done it. And as we get older, we long for the things we probably missed out in our youth. And now we, having met all these great people, online, these great DMs and great players, we're learning so much. And if I could have brought half of this knowledge back to my 14-year-old self, even though I was surrounded by game masters decades older than me in my very beginnings, even they played a lot of the same wargamey sort of things that we've all tried to evolve past. There's no better way to show your player that, hey, you're paying attention, and you've created some of their own rewards by writing a good backstory, something that we can use as a DM. I hate every single one of my players. Freaking James.
The one you have on the screen, though, I kind of, with my own real life family situation, there was a quote that was given to me as a kid: "No one will screw you over faster than family." And having one of the family members betray the family or you just adds an extra depth into the campaign that no one was expecting.
Well, absolutely. We all have, or at least most of us have, somebody we'd rather not invite to Thanksgiving. I've literally had to tell my boy, if a certain relative ever makes their self known to him, he's to run as far away or to the nearest law enforcement agency or officer or figure of authority. We've all got somebody, like I said, we don't want to invite, but what they make for that villain. How do you kill your own family member? What do? Do you get them arrested? Do you how do you deal with that? That's massively, that's why there are so many people out there that are bad guys, because their own families don't know what to do when they're the first people to step up, or should be the first people to step up and solve that problem right quick, even if they're the ones who started the problem in the first place.
How much do I like this family member?
Right. James, my player's primary purpose seems to be to do everything I haven't planned on or prepared for. Then you've got actually decent players. Like I said a while ago, as dungeon masters, we're outnumbered players to us one dungeon master. They should be doing those kinds of things. They've got the ability to brainstorm with a whole bunch of jerk-offs at your table. They should be able to outsmart you and figure the things out and what have you. If they don't, then yeah, you definitely do need to get some new players, because they should be, kind of like that whole, Dr. Doom versus the Fantastic Four, or the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles against Shredder. There's 4 against 1. They should win, the day. You're just one DM working, trying to keep all the, the cogs in motion, and here come these, these players, these heroes, these anti-heroes, these rapscallions, these scoundrels. They should be throwing wrenches into your works. That's why, that's kind of its own reward, at least for me. If I had this game where it was a superhero game, and the bad guys were actually like shape changers. The whole planet was slowly being taken over by shape changers that were infiltrating the highest position. Kind of like that, except that they could change from one thing to another. So that was their only power, but they were taking over all the positions of power. And the very last game was when the superheroes thought they were going to be rewarded. They got to meet the president. He was one of them, and that was the last game. They went into the president's office, and they were wondering why there were so many armed bodyguards, because that was it. They lost, and they should have figured it out, but they didn't. And
it's like that scene in the Captain America movie where he gets into the elevator with a bunch of SHIELD agents, and then as soon as the elevator doors close, he realizes the SHIELD agents are there to arrest him.
Civil War. Captain.
I didn't see that one, but yeah, I can imagine. Yeah.
I was actually thinking somebody with green face, kind of wrinkly chin, pointy ears, comes from space, big pain in the ass from the Fantastic Four. Yeah.
Clert, the Super Skrull.
Yeah. It was something like that, and they should have. I'd given them plenty of warnings, but if we've got good players, they're gonna throw a wrench into our works. But that's kind of the fun for me. I don't know about you guys, but I like it when my players rise to the occasion and think of things that I don't. And tonight's topic was a great way for you to let them, get their first foot in the door, I think. How about you guys? Any final thoughts?
Tie your character, tie your players' characters to the world by including their family in the game. Because if you can tie their character to whatever campaign, like thread or plot you have in mind, that will help get them invested, because that means they know you took the time to read what they gave you. And showing that level of interest in your players will go a long way.
One thing that got brought up, I guess kind of like mentioned as a possibility earlier, that I thought of something to say about, but didn't get an opportunity to earlier, was mentioned the whole clone idea. It's like, oh, your character is a clone who popped out of a vat, and that's all there is to know about the character. Actually had a character like that in the Hyperborea games I was playing, because in the Hyperborea setting, there's this race of people called the Un. The Un are genetically tinkered with humans who are literally grown in tanks and pop out of vats instead of being, born the natural way. So, that's his backstory. But with that, though, you have, as a player character, you need to ask yourself, like, okay, so which vat did he come out of, and who was running it? Because most of the Un were actually creations of an alien race called the Migo, who are not particularly nice guys. And also, they don't usually just leave Un wandering around on their own.
Last thoughts. Yes, I have a last thought. When can I play Andre Darian? I believe, yeah. The great ancestor of one Darian Hawk. What was his name? Darian Hawk?
Not ancestor.
Yeah.
Descendant, or go the opposite direction, one of the founding members of his family. When I sit down to think about something other than my Bronze Era game,
that's what I said, one of the founding members of said family. Having players are willing to sit down and write a backstory should be encouraged. Just because me as a person, I'm always 50-50 on it, depends on the table, is never a bad thing. The more time they're willing to put into their character, even if no one reads it but him and the DM, is more invested in the campaign that they're going to be.
Agreed.
And don't be
So
a
with
dick.
that,
Don't be a dick.
So with that, yeah. Yeah, be gentle, let them down easy. If they come up with something, give them, give them at least some encouragement so that the next time they make up a character, they're not going to just give you, one sentence and go, fine, here. No, encourage them, reward them a little, not too much. I mean, you got to leave them wanting something, right, guys and gals? Don't just hand it all to them on a silver platter. Well, you made such a great backstory, you can retire now. Just live off your parents' wealth and send other player characters out on missions. Okay, great. Thanks for the NPC. You want to roll up another character? But yeah, this has been fun. I hope everybody learned something, not just me. Thank you to everybody in the chat.
Okay,
Really
wait, one
appreciate
sec. Sorry.
Sure.
That what you just said reminded me of something from that is actually like a standard thing in our Hyperborea game. Is that pretty much everyone actually has more than one character, and actually you can actually building more than one character who are close relatives of each other, and not waiting until one of them gets killed to use the other. You can actually have fun RPing that.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I actually usually kind of almost insist that my players run two characters, depending on how many players there are, just so they have their own backup and their own, like, friend within the group. Should there be any, dissension or anything like that, they could at least have, their own little, squad. And the, if they do want to split the party, they've kind of got, okay, well, your characters are going to go here, your characters are going to go there, and that way there's more healers. But we're getting way off topic.
Us never.
This was a learning
Off-topic?
video?
No, never.
Oh, I'm sorry, Sean. I'll put a warning, a disclaimer in the next video that we do next
he
week.
liked it.
Yeah, thank you for showing up, Sean. What is the topic for next week?
Currently, we don't have a topic set for next week. That's something we, the Gatekeepers, are going to have to talk about post-show. Mostly because life has been busy. May is just a really busy month for me all the time. So currently, we don't have anything scheduled.
Okay, well, if you guys have any suggestions or anything you'd like to hear us talk about or discuss in the coming month, definitely leave us a comment either after the show on Discord, on my channel, on Jade's channel, Connell's channel. Do you have a channel there, Mar, yet? Do you have one yet?
I sometimes do a streaming on Twitch and put videos on YouTube, but it's not most of it isn't TTRPG stuff. I've done a few things related to TTRPGs, but not much.
Okay, well, the sooner that you get started on that, the better, right, guys?
James. Wow.
What did he say?
I might have to.
Oh,
he says non-forking family trees. Next topic. Oof. I don't know about that one.
Touch that. I'm ornery as hell.
Yeah, that one came. Yeah. Okay, I just saw that. Yeah. Wow.
Like I
we'll
said,
come up with something. We always do.
Yeah.
It's not so much of a tree as it is a wreath. That you put on your door for Christmas. I need to go to bed. I'm tired.
Fair enough.
Well.
All right, folks. We are going to hit the road. We all got real world stuff to do. Thank you guys so much. We had a ton of people in tonight, ton of eyeballs watching us, and you can't see that, but we can, and it makes it all worthwhile having so many great people here tonight. some people we haven't seen in a while, some people we see too much of. But you figure that one out. Until next time, folks, have a great week and an even better weekend. It's, as you can see, at least in my neck of the woods, it's getting pretty nice outside, and I'm looking forward to it. Thank you guys. Thank you so much. Everybody, go out there, play some games, have some fun, and
Smoke a
get some
cigar.
fresh air. Yeah, and then get some fresh air. So, happy trails, everybody.